Good afternoon, ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Bakr Ahmed, and welcome to today's video. Today, I want to be going ahead and talking about mass takfir in general that is happening within our Muslim Ummah. If you're Sunni, if you're Shia, and you guys are just making base statements against each other, going ahead and calling each other non-Muslims, calling each other kafir, this is absolutely ridiculous. First off, this world is very ignorant. Secondly, I know most of you guys have never even read the Quran. Never have opened your own hadiths. Never have read anything. The first thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala released in the Holy Quran, the first word, the first revelation that Angel Jibreel alayhi salam came down to and gave to the Prophet Mohammed, peace and blessings be upon him, was read. He told him, read. This is one of the most important things you can possibly do. So the fact that Muslimin are running around the internet, Muslimin are running around the streets, calling each other kafir, mass takfiring each other, and they have never even read. They haven't even followed the first command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala given to our Prophet. This is absolutely mind-boggling to me. So what I want to go ahead and do here today is ask ChatGPT some questions. So I'm going to mix it up. We're going to have some fun with the AI bot. And I want to understand some of the talking points that the Sunni Muslims go ahead and say against the Shia Muslims. As I am Shia Muslim myself, these are talking points that have been told to me through my videos, through other comments. People just flat out attacking me because I'm Shia. They have no clue what I believe. They have no clue what my theology is. They have no clue what their theology is. They've never read the Holy Quran, but they think they have the authority to speak. So I want to go ahead and figure this out and see what's going on here, right? Now, starting with point number one. Point number one is going to be, do I worship Imam Ali alayhi salam? Do I worship Imam Ali? Do I worship human beings? Do I worship something that is gone, that cannot go ahead and physically help me in any way, shape, or form? No, absolutely not. I pray 5 times a day. And during those 5 times a day that I do pray, I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Allah alone. I call for help to Allah and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. But let's go ahead and ask ChatGPT, do the Shia worship Ali? And this is one of the biggest things that I've ever seen people go ahead and make accusations of online. You worship Imams, you worship Ali, you worship Ali. Okay, so let's go ahead and figure this out. No, Shia Muslims do not worship Ali. That's a common misconception. Here's the truth. Shia Muslims deeply revere Ali ibn Abi Talib, the cousin and son-in-law of the Prophet Muhammad, as the first rightful Imam and legitimate successor of the Prophet. But his reverence is not worship. Let's break it down. Worship in Islam is strictly revered to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God alone. Shia Muslims may invoke Ali's name in poetry, sermons, or supplications, but this is a veneration, not worship. It is comparable to how Catholics may honor saints, okay? There's a difference, though, with the saints, okay? Because some Catholics will actually create statues of their saints, and they will go and give offerings to these saints, and they will invoke help from these saints. Ali himself condemned being worshipped and warned his followers against any form of defecation. In fact, historical records say he punished those who tried to attribute divinity to him, right? So there was actually people who actually worshipped Imam Ali at the time, worshipped prophets at the time, and they were actually killed for what they have done, okay? This is one of the biggest sins that you can possibly commit in the religion of Islam, is attributing partners to God or worshiping other than God Almighty. Especially worshiping the figure that's telling you to worship God alone. If you are worshiping him, this is full kafir, and the Shia belief completely denies this, okay? Shia means follower of Ali alayhi salam, and if we are followers of the Ahlul Bayt of Ali alayhi salam and the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, when did any of them go ahead and teach us to worship them, right? Why the confusion? Some Sunni polemics or critics of Shia Islam have sorely accused Shia Muslims of worshipping Ali because of the high level of honor and love they show him. Practices like visiting Ali's shrine in Najaf and asking for his intercession are often misinterpreted as acts of worship. But from the Shia perspective, these are acts of Tawassul. Okay? This word is very important, and we're going to go ahead and touch on it, right? Seeking closeness to God through the beloved servant of God, which they argue is permissible. a collection of sermons and letters attributed to Ali that is consistently affirmed in monotheism and his own servitude of God. If you guys have never read this book, please guys, one of the greatest books you will ever read. It is the sermons and letters and notations of Imam Ali alayhi salam. If you are Sunni, please purchase this book. He is your fourth caliph and he is the lion of Islam. Read this book. Read this book. This book is so important. It's filled with knowledge. You guys want to talk about hadith? This is so beautiful. And especially read this book. Please read your Quran. The Quran first before anything. Please read the Quran. It will open your heart, open your mind, and you'll be able to see things differently. Quran 4:59, a verse often cited by Shia to support the obedience to those in authority among them, which they interpret them as imams, starting with Ali. Books like Shiat Islam by Alami Tabati, I'm sorry, I do not know his name, provided a doctrinal explanation that clearly distinguishes between reverence and worship. To sum it up, no, Shia do not worship Ali. They honor him as a divinely appointed leader and one of the most virtuous figures in Islam. They maintain strict monotheism. Okay, so the problem here, right, and where they go ahead and say that the Shia Muslims worship Imam Ali alayhi salam is this word right here, Tawassul. Okay? The word Tawassul is very, 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 very important here. So let's go ahead and ask, don't Sunni Muslims practice Tawassul? Why do they see it as shirk when Shia do it? Let's see. Great question. This is one of those thorny theological debates where history, doctrine, and politics intertwine. You're absolutely right to ask, don't Sunnis also practice Tawassul? Yes, many do, but here's where the tension lies. What is Tawassul? Tawassul means seeking the means to draw closer to Allah, often by asking through the status of a prophet, righteous person, or saint. It is not exclusive to Shiaism. In fact, classic Sunni scholars permit it, but the controversy is more about how it's practiced, who it's practiced through, and when. So who determines this, right? Tradition, Sunni position. Permissible to seek tawassul through the Prophet Mohammed, especially during his lifetime and even after death, according to many. Examples, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, yes, the founder of the Hanbal school, reportedly allowed tawassul. Imam Nawawi and Imam al-Sabki supported tawassul through the Prophet. This is still common among Sufi Sunni schools. Salafi Wahhabi position. Okay, this is who strictly forbids this. Is the Salafi Wahhabi position. Abdul Wahab, people of these likes, all right? Strictly opposes tawassul through dead people, including the Prophet. Views it as shirk, according to partners of God. If someone believes in the intercessor has powers independent of God, the view comes after the influence of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahab, 18th century. So subhanAllah, it took 18 centuries, so over 1,000 years, 1,200 years for the Muslim world to go ahead and claim that tawassul is shirk, tawassul is completely forbidden, because someone named Abdul Wahab came. And when we say there's something called Wahhabis out there, this is why. Okay, they believe in the theology of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahab. This is what they believe. They do not believe in the orthodox of Islam. They claim to be of the truth, but as Sunni and Shia Muslims all around the world, we know exactly the difference between someone who might follow the Hanbali school and someone who is a Wahhabi or Salafi. There's a big difference. They view it as shirk, associating partners with God. If someone believes in intercession has powers independent of God, the view becomes after the influence of Muhammad ibn... Okay. Shia practice. Shia Muslims practice tawassul through the imams who are believed to be divinely appointed, spiritually infallible. For Shia theology, the imams are living proofs, hujjah, of God on earth, and seeking their intercession is not shirk because all power comes from God alone. They see the imams as vessels of God's mercy, not anonymous agents. Meaning, when someone goes ahead and does tawassul with the Prophet or does tawassul with the Imam, They are not calling upon them to come down from the sky and help them. They are not. So if someone says Ya Ali or Ya Muhammad or whatever the case may be, oh, you can only say Ya Allah, you can only say Ya Allah. Your intention matters very much. If you are praying to the Prophet or you are praying to Ali, alayhi salam, right? If you're praying to these figures, then this is what is shirk, right? But let's say you're picking up something heavy, okay? And you say, Ya Ali, right? Your intention might be, hey Allah, please give me the strength of Imam Ali alayhi salam, correct? You're not calling Imam Ali to fly down from the sky and help you pick up the heavy object. That is not what's happening. And that's never happening. When I was in Mecca and Medina last year, when I went to Medina, I saw thousands of Sunni Muslims go directly to the Prophet's grave, and say, Salamu alaykum ya Rasulallah ya Habib Allah. Not, Ya Allah, send my salam to the Prophet. You know, what do we say at the end of our prayer? Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Right? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Who are we sending our salam to directly in our... We're praying directly to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But in the middle of our prayer, before we end it, we just send a direct salamu alaikum to our Prophet. Does he answer? Does he receive it? Who gives it to him? This is a very, 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 very sensitive topic, and this is a very, very difficult topic. The topic of Tawassul, ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, this is something that you cannot just run around and start calling people kafir for, especially when you do it 5 times a day in your daily prayer, especially when you go to the Prophet's grave and start sending salams directly to him and he's dead. You guys have to really, really understand that every single thing runs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If your intention is not to place partners or place anyone as equal to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no, you're not talking directly to Imam Ali. No, you're not talking directly to the Prophet. Your context is, but you're not through intention. This is very, very, very clear. If anyone wants to go ahead and argue this, then ask me, then tell me why you don't abrogate this from your prayer. Because I was told to say it by the Prophet. Why would the Prophet tell you to send salams to him after he's dead if it's haram or shirk? In your prayer 5 times a day. Why? Why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala command this? If it's shirk, if it's associating partners with God. Only in your prayer it's not. But you know, whenever else you do it, it is. So be very, very, very careful when you're going ahead and throwing around words and throwing around claims that, for instance, this in general makes you a kafir. Yes, if someone is like, Ya Ali, help me, Ya Ali, come and help me, and he actually believes Imam Ali flew from the sky and helped him, or sent something to help him, this is 100% shirk. 100% shirk. Okay? I, personally, as a Shia Muslim of 27 years, who grew up and was born in Detroit, Michigan, the largest Shia population, one of the largest Muslim populations outside the Middle East, right? The Shia capital of the United States of America. I'd never seen this before in my life. I've never seen anyone invoke an imam or invoke the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, in any way, shape, or form, thinking that they're actually helping him. More or less as a intercessor. Like, you would want them to go ahead and honor you like you honor them, right? And you would want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to go ahead and pass this message along, right? I don't see why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot pass a message along, especially to our Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. Is our Prophet actually dead? Is he? Our Prophet passed away, but is he not receiving our salams in our prayer every single day? So, why the accusation of shirk? Theological differences. Shia elevate the imams more than Sunni theology allows for any humans. For some Sunnis, especially the Salafist strand, this feels too close to defecation. Historical and political rivalries. The sectarian conflict between Sunni and Shia isn't just about beliefs. It's rooted from early secession disputes, wars, and centuries of polemics. The accusation of shirk are also often weaponized more for delegitimacy than accurate theology. Shia devotional expressions of Ya Ali Maddad mourning rituals, and more emotional and dramatic and more observations that look like worship, even if it isn't. The reliance of the traveler, these are sources to go ahead and back up the Shia and the Sunni claims, right? Quran 5:3-5. Seek the means, Wasila, to him, citing in both sides to justify their views. Okay. This is not about Tawassul per se, it's about authority, legitimacy, and worldview. Okay. So she's saying most of the time that they are calling shirk and they're using Tawassul in specific to go ahead and delegitimize the Shia and call them kafir. That this is also found in Sunni Islam, correct? It's found while you're praying. It's found while you travel to the Prophet's grave and you send your salams upon the Prophet. You probably send, let's see. Do Sunnis practice Tawassul by giving direct salams to the Prophet at his grave? Okay, so the question that I asked here is, do Sunnis practice Tawassul by giving direct salams to the Prophet, peace be upon him, at his grave? Do they send salams to Abu Bakr and Umar as well? Absolutely, many Sunni Muslims do practice Tawassul by giving salams directly to the Prophet, peace be upon him, at his grave. And yes, they also send salams to Abu Bakr and Umar, who are buried next to him. Let's unpack that. Visiting the Prophet's grave in Sunni Islam. Visiting the Prophet's grave in Medina is recommended sunnah in classic Sunni jurisprudence, especially after Hajj or Umrah. Pilgrims say, Assalamu alayka ya Rasulallah, peace be upon you, O Messenger of God. This is not considered shirk because it's understood that the Prophet hears the salam. Allahu Akbar. Hadith supports, no one sends greetings upon me, but Allah returns the soul to my body that I may return his greetings. Okay? This is the Sunni perspective as well, by the way. What about Abu Bakr and Umar? Yes, absolutely. Sunnis typically say salams to Abu Bakr and Umar when they visit the Prophet's grave. They are buried just behind the Prophet in the same chamber, right? Pilgrims will move slightly to the right and say, Assalamu alayka ya Abu Bakr, Assalamu alayka ya Umar. Ya Abu Bakr, ya Umar. How is this not shirk then? How is this not any different than saying Ya Ali? Does Abu Bakr and Umar get your salams? Do they receive your salams? And this is the problem, ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls. This is the problem that I'm having. It's actually the ignorance of this ummah. The ignorance of this ummah is actually so weaponizing and nasty. Shaitan has been working so hard. But let's go ahead and continue this, right? I'm just confused on how, when a Shia Muslim says Ya Ali, right, with no intention of putting Ali alayhi salam on the level of God, on the level of the Prophet alone, even, he's an imam, he's under the Prophet. He didn't bring anything new. He didn't do anything greater than the Prophet. The Prophet Mohammed, peace and blessings be upon him, is the greatest man to ever live. Shia theology believes he's fully infallible, unlike Sunni theology as well, which you guys believe that he is fallible. He can make mistakes. Within your hadiths, he was suicidal. Within your hadiths, he had black spots on his heart. Within your hadiths, he's been bewitched and overtaken by black magic. This is not within our theology. This is completely redonkulous. But for the sake of here and what we're talking about, Sunni Muslims do go to the grave of the Prophet and say, Assalamu alaikum ya Rasulallah. They also say, Assalamu alaikum ya Abu Bakr and Assalamu alaikum ya Umar, directly without invoking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first. It's considered a form of honor and remembrance, not worship. They're companions of the Prophet, and the Sahaba have high status in Islam. The layout of Rawda. When you enter the Prophet's mosque and you approach the grave chamber, first you face Muhammad, then slightly right Abu Bakr, further right Umar ibn Khattab. It's stricter so that the respectful salams can be given to each in sequence. So they even built the grave in the shrines to go ahead and give your salams in the correct order of the sequence, kind of like you're reading a book, you know? So they expect you to go and send your salams to them directly, not invoking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why some controversy? The practice now has been welcomed by all Sunnis. Again, the Salafi Wahhabi stance takes a harder stance. They disturb and restrict direct salams to the grave. They fear that too much veneration could lead to shirk or grave worship. They often prefer sending salawat from afar and discourage travel specifically to visiting graves. But traditionally, Sunni scholars, Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi, Hanbali, are allowed and even recommend it, and they draw a line between veneration, tazim, and worship. This is very important, guys. Very important. My take: the act of sending salams to the Prophet and their rightfully guided caliphs is deeply integrated in Sunni devotional life. Even if the modern reform movements try and sanctionize or minimize it, for most Sunnis, it's not just a ritual, it's a living connection to their spiritual lineage. If you are curious, we can dive deeper. Okay. So what were we just talking about here? We're talking about Tawassul. We're talking about calling upon the dead, right? And not calling upon them for help, not calling upon them and associating partners with God, but sending direct messages to them. Sending direct messages to them so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can deliver that message. You will say, Ya Abu Bakr, Ya Umar, Ya Mohammed, sending your salams, Ya Ali, right? You say these things not because you think Umar and Abu Bakr and the Prophet Muhammad and Imam Ali, alayhi salam, all of these people are going to come down from the sky and legitimately help you, or they're going to do something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot do. This is actually ridiculous. If someone does do this, this is pure shirk. But this is not how Tawassul works. This is not even close to how Tawassul works. And the only ones that go ahead and deny this are the Wahhabi regime. Abdul Wahab, who came in the 18th century, 1,000 years after the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. The last thing I want to go ahead and ask is, did Abdul Wahab abrogate the salams to the Prophet from his prayer? If it is shirk. If not, why? Now, that's a sharp theological question. I love it because it puts Salafi Wahhab framework under the microscope by using their own logic. Short answer: no, Muhammad ibn Wahhab did not abrogate sending salams to the Prophet in prayer. He fully affirmed the obligation of salat and salam with the ritual prayer. But there is a kicker. He reinterpreted the context and restricted the manner in which that validation could be shown outside the ritual prayer. Subhanallah. Subhanallah, subhanallah. So when I'm praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when I'm praying to God, when I'm in my ritualistic state of complete seclusion, where me and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are connecting to each other, and in the middle of that, I just stop talking to God. I stop sending my praises to God, and I go, Salamu alaykum Rasulullah. This is okay. This is okay. Subhanallah. Okay. It's amazing to me. I'm sorry. It's just amazing to me. What do Muslims say in everyday prayer? Assalamu alayka, hayyuan nabi, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be upon you, O Prophet, and the mercy of Allah and His blessings. This is tashahhud. Tashahhud is what it's called. And it's considered obligatory, wajib, for all four Sunni schools of law. Abdul Wahab did not dare to change this because it directly rooted in authentic hadith. Removing it would be clear innovation bid'ah at the highest order. So it's very interesting that he allows the tawassul and the prayer when you're invoking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. But when you're not invoking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, right? You're at the Prophet's grave and you say, Assalamu alaikum ya Rasulullah, this is shirk. Even though no one's worshipping the Prophet at his grave, no one's actually talking to the Prophet at his grave, You sending your salams to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, you're sending it with the intention of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala delivering the message. You're not sending it thinking the Prophet's going to come down from the sky, take your salam, shake your hand, and fly back up. That's not what's happening. But this is a very, very contradictive thing that I'm reading right here, right? So why the accusation of shirk elsewhere? Here's the contradiction that critics point out. Inside prayer, you can send salams to the Prophet. Even second person you, it is totally fine. Outside prayer, Wahhabis become extremely cautious, visiting the grave, calling the Prophets, saying, Ya Rasulullah. They started branding these practices as shirk, leading to shirk. So if you are asking, if you say, Assalamu alaikum ya Rasulullah is shirk, then why do you say it in every prayer? Then yes, you are pointing out a theological tension in Wahhabi reasoning, and is a legitimate one. The form is the same, the intent is still spiritual contact, so why is one tawheed and the other is shirk? Wahhabi justification. They try to split hairs like this. In Salah, the Prophet taught us the formula, so it's allowed. Oh, subhanallah. In Salah, it's allowed because the Prophet taught us. But outside of Salah, the Prophet didn't teach us. This rule just disappears. Outside Salah, using the second person addresses or asking the Prophet for help can lead to people in defying him, which is why they say is not explicitly permitted and therefore dangerous. But it was... Listen, Tawassul, if you guys want to go ahead yourselves and go ahead and dive into the hadiths of Sunni Islam, it is very, very, very shown that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, practiced this outside of Salah. Not just inside Salah, but outside of Salah as well. So it is that Abdul Wahab said, do not send salams, but rather do not go beyond what is explicitly legislated in forms of functions. Okay? Critics and many scholars say, this is overly literalist and inconsistent. It is a fear-based theology that cuts off spiritual connection and reduces Islamic tradition and bare ritualism. Scholars like Imam al-Su'aiti, al-Nawawi, and al-Kutubi strongly argues that sending salams even in the grave from a distance is spiritually meritorious and not shirk. Final thought. Abdul Wahab kept the form of salam but redefined its boundaries. It's like saying, sure, you can text your friend, but if you try and call him, you're crossing the line. So ChatGPT goes ahead and this is a straight shot to Abdul Wahab's ideology. So it is not abrogation, it's tight rebranding. And one may argue that shrinks the spiritual heart of Islam. So what do I take away from this conversation with ChatGPT? And you guys can take away whatever you would like as well. I'm understanding that saying Ya Ali as no more than Tawassul, correct? When a Shia Muslim says Ya Ali, they do not believe that Ali is at the level of God. They do not believe that Ali is at the level of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. They do not believe Ali is going to magically fly down from the sky and help them. Then they do this, they are invoking it through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. Even though in the vocabulary, they do not say, Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, please send this message to Imam Ali. Tell him I love him. La. Okay? Same thing. When I went ahead and went to Medina, I saw hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Sunni Muslims saying, Salamu alaikum ya Rasulullah ya Habib Allah. Salamu alaikum Abu Bakr. Salamu alaikum ya Umar ibn Khattab. Salamu alaikum. Directly. Not saying, Ya Allah, send my salams to my Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and send my salams to Abu Bakr. La. That's not what they were doing. They were sending their salams directly to these dead individuals. And this is very important to go ahead and understand, because in all four major schools of thought in Sunni Islam, all four madhabs, they go ahead and support Tawassul. They say it's absolutely fine. As long as your intention is not to invoke these individuals at the level of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or to think they're coming down from the sky and you're talking to them or you're interacting with them, this is completely different. It's a sign of respect. When I go ahead and say Ya Ali when picking up a heavy object, I don't think Imam Ali is going to fly down from the sky and help me pick up the object. I don't. I'm invoking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, give me the strength of Imam Ali alayhi salam. The guy ripped the door of Khaybar off, right? So it's very important to understand the intention behind it, correct? The only one that goes ahead and calls Tawassul complete shirk is Abdul Wahab. Abdul Wahab is an individual who came over 1,000 years after our Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, completely going ahead and creating this extremist set of rules on the religion of Islam. Abdul Wahab also allows Tawassul in prayer. So when I'm praying and I say, Assalamu alaikum hayyuan nabiy rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, this is perfectly fine, right? Perfectly fine to go ahead and send your salams to the Prophet and his family in the middle of your prayer, right? Send your salams all day long to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, directly. It's okay for you to go ahead and send your salams to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, according to Abdul Wahab, in the middle of your prayer. So like when you're straight up invoking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you're connected directly to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and just praising God, praising God, praising God, praising God, in the middle of your prayer, you're just like, you know, let me just send salams to the Prophet. Assalamu alaikum hayyuan nabiy rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is not shirk, no. But when you go ahead and do this outside of the prayer, it becomes shirk to Abdul Wahab. This is a complete contradiction. This makes absolutely no sense. Why would our Prophet, why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, peace and blessings be upon our Prophet, why would he go ahead and tell us to do something that's shirk, especially in our prostration, in our prayer every single day, 5 times a day? Are we really committing shirk 5 times a day in our prayer? This is actually ridiculous. And I want my Sunni and Shia Muslim brothers and sisters to really pay attention to what's going on around us. Really pay attention to who the enemy is of Islam. The Wahhabi regime of Saudi Arabia. The Wahhabi mindset that comes from Abdul ibn Wahab. This guy, this individual, came over 1,000 years later to go ahead and create an extremist sect of Islam. Who's ISIS and the Taliban and Al-Qaeda and who are all these terrorist groups, bro? What are they? What ideology they follow? The ideology of Abdul Wahab. These guys pray 100 times a day. They have black spots on their head from how much they pray. And then they go, I go to heaven if I chop off Shia's head. If I kill a Shia, I go to heaven. If I kill these people, I have all these virgins. This is what they believe, right? And you guys have to be very, 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 very careful in this day and age, because these are the individuals that are pushing the mainstream of Islam today. And I just wanted to go ahead and talk about this today, and I wanted to use the chat bot today to go ahead and make things a little bit more clear, question specific things, and try and understand specific things. Please, ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, I only spoke about Tawassul today. So we have 2 different ways of looking at this. Either you're part of one of the 4 major schools of thought of Sunni Islam, right? Like Hanbali, Maliki, and so forth. You're Shia, right? So all 5 of these schools of thinking believe that Tawassul is not shirk. You can say Assalamu alaikum to the Prophet. You can say Assalamu alaikum to Abu Bakr or Umar, right? You can say Assalamu alaikum to Imam Ali alayhi salam when you visit their graves. You can go ahead and send your salams to them, correct? You are not sending them directly. Yes, your tone of voice, yes, your language is saying Salamu alaikum ya Abu Bakr, right? But what are you asking? You're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to actually take your message to him. You're not actually thinking that Abu Bakr is standing there and you're sending your salam to him. The same thing applies with Imam Ali alayhi salam. When I say, Ya Ali, when I say Salamu alaikum ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, right? Am I putting Amir al-Mu'mineen on the level of God Almighty? Am I putting Amir al-Mu'mineen on the level of my Prophet? Peace and blessings be upon him? Astaghfirullah. No, this is called Tawassul. And if you guys really, really understood, read the first thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in the Holy Quran. Read the first thing he told the Prophet Muhammad. Read. If you guys read, you'll understand that if you are a Sunni Muslim from any of the 4 major schools of thought, if you are a Shia Muslim, Tawassul is not shirk. But if you follow the ideologies that came over 1,000 years after by Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahab, then this is shirk. So you guys need to go ahead and make up your minds and understand, are you Wahhabi? Are you Maliki or Hanbali? Are you Shia? What are you? What do you believe? What do you go ahead and fall in line with when it comes to these things? And you shouldn't be going ahead and running around and calling everyone else a kafir or calling anything else shirk if you do not really understand the context or what's going on here, correct? It's very important to go ahead and educate yourself. It's very important to go ahead and get the right information. And if you don't, then you're going to be committing some very, very major sins. To mass takfir people is one of the worst things you can possibly do. You are putting upon the judgment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala into your own hands without the correct knowledge or the correct means to do so. Please be very, very, very careful. You cannot be a Maliki or Hanbali and run around calling Shia who go ahead and say Ya Ali, calling them kafir. You cannot. This goes against your own madhab. This goes against your own school of thought. Please, please, please educate yourselves, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Please talk to each other as an ummah. Sit down, have educational conversations. Do not sit and mock each other and murk each other and make fun of each other. I don't care if you guys are emotionally hurt. I'm emotionally hurt too. For 27 years of my life, I've been called a kafir. For 27 years of my life, I've been made fun of. For 27 years of my life, I've been told I'm not even a Muslim. But this is not true. I pray every single day to my Creator. I pray every single day to my Creator, and He answers my calls. He answers my prayers. He guides me to specific knowledge. He guides me and He calms me. He gives me patience. He takes that emotion, that anger away from me that other people try to inflict upon me. The anger that shaitan tries to put on me. That trap that shaitan tries to put around you. He removes that from me a lot of the time. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Thank you guys so much for coming in today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please just stop mass takfiring each other. That's all I ask. Just stop mass takfiring each other. I love you all. And until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.